Welcome to today's conversation. Today I am joined by the lovely Ana Mexia. Ana is a shamanic sound healer, medicine woman, and ceremonial cacao space holder. Her work is rooted in native teachings and wisdom complemented by modern techniques. She's also a writer, DJ, copywriter, and a devoted student of all things plants. Welcoming us into the space. So let's just take a few moments as we sit here, becoming present with ourselves, present with our heart, present with our being, and allowing our mind to soften, our expectations to soften as we fully arrive in this moment. Letting everything that came before be in the past, everything that will come in the future, giving it that space and boundary to exist then, as we create this bubble around us to be here in the present moment now. And envisioning our feet just opening up, our root opening up to connect down with the heart of the earth. Seeing our root system begin to unfurl, reaching down towards the heart of the earth. And as we connect in with this beautiful energy of the planet that supports us, that gives us a home to live on, receiving her energy with love, as her energy begins to flow up our roots, flowing into our feet, into our legs, our knees, flowing all the way up into our hips, flowing into our root, to our sacral, all the way up into our solar plexus, and resting within our heart. And from the crown of our head, elongating our spine all the way up towards the heart of the sky, the moon, the stars, the sun, and allowing our whole presence to extend beyond where we usually reside. Taking in the wisdom of the stars, taking in the wisdom of the atmosphere, the sunlight, the moonlight, and allowing all of this energy to begin to flow down, opening up your crown to receive, opening up our minds to receive new insight, new wisdom, relaxing our brain waves from beta into alpha, softening our hips as we receive this light information into our throat, into our shoulders, our hands, flowing all the way down through our chest into our heart, and reaching down through our solar plexus, our sacral, and our root, down to our legs and feet. And for a few moments, just feeling that connection to the heavens above and the earth below, ourselves as that pillar of connection. And taking a few breaths to breathe this in. Feeling the space around us becoming even softer, and our presence becoming even deeper. And from this space, as we open the door to this beautiful plant medicine that we came here to connect with today, Mama Cacao, and if you have your cup, bringing it into your hands here, feeling the warmth of your cup, feeling your heart connection as your heart beats into your cup. And maybe you receive the aroma from this beautiful plant already too. And as we open up, connecting in with the space that you feel so grateful for, and beaming this into the heart of the earth as we give thanks to the heart of the earth. Beaming our love up to the heart of the sky as we give thanks to the heart of the sky. Beaming our love into the heart of the waters as we give thanks to the heart of the water. And beaming our love into the heart of the fire as we give thanks to the heart of the fire. beaming our love into the heart of the air as we give thanks to the heart of the air, taking a deep breath in at this moment, and exhaling as an offering, as a gratitude, back to the air. Breathing in and giving thanks to the heart of ether, and exhaling, giving thanks to the heart of the void. We give thanks to the guardians and protectors of the lands on which we currently reside. And we give thanks to the guardians and protectors of the lands from which our cacao has traveled. Blessing the people, the beings, everybody that it took for this cup to be here today, for this cacao to be with us today. May they all know themselves as love and feel this love from us right now. And beaming in love for our maternal lineage, beaming in love for our paternal lineage, beaming in love for everything that is in existence, everything that was in existence, and everything that will be in existence. And beaming in love to our listeners right now, beaming in love to our past listeners, and those who will still yet listen to this podcast. Feeling ourselves connected in this moment, feeling ourselves unified and present as we open our heart up to have a beautiful conversation. And we give thanks to the heart of Mama Cacao, beaming your love into your cup and giving your thanks in your own way to this beautiful plant medicine. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Cheers. Cheers. Yeah, today it just hits like certain days. Sometimes you get it and it just hits so nourishing. And today is one of those days. And I have the honor of sitting here with Mexia. She is energy worker. She is an herbalist as well, vast knowledge of plant medicine. And I would love to just have you share your journey, share whatever you feel in this moment. And if there's an intention for this call, whatever you feel most compelled to share. So pass over the mic to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Every time I remember the way we met, I just so much synergy and so much like cacao bringing us together actually since we met at a cacao ceremony. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Funny that we're also just a few blocks away from each other. Yeah, I am Ana. I am Mexican. I was born and raised in Mexico. I have been living here in New York for 6 years. I practice all things plants. My path has always been very centered around the earth, from like years ago heavy into activism to then sort of switching more to spirituality and plant medicine in all sorts of ways, herbs and plant baths and actual plant medicine and and all these things. I really hope to I love the name Conversations with Cacao of really just hope to have a nice conversation while we drink cacao. Yeah, very excited to be here and continue to share this journey with you since cacao brought us together. Fun fact, I was moving here to Long Island from the city and I went to a cacao ceremony that a friend in common that we have was hosting. And as I was leaving, I hear behind me someone saying, "Oh, I have to go home because I have to drive all the way to Lindenhurst." And I'm like, "Hi, I'm moving to Lindenhurst next week. Nice to meet you." And it turns out we actually live blocks from each other. And yeah, became such good friends now. Nice.
Yes. Oh, that was such a magical weaving because it was like the very end of the night. And I remember like, I think I spoke to everybody else in the room and I was just about to leave and I said that. And then you like completed the cycle too.
And like that particular night, I was about to move. I was just going through so many like life changes and all these things. So I wasn't really talking to anyone. Actually, when the ceremony ended, I like sneaked into like one of the side rooms and I was like laying down by myself and just like processing And even our friend came in, she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just like going through a lot and I'm not feeling like socializing a lot." And it just happened. I think you were the only person that I spoke to that day. I was like, "Who said Lindenhurst? She needs to be my friend." Because one of my biggest fears was I'm gonna move here and am I not gonna have any community? You know, moving to New York was such a like start over for me, not really knowing anyone in the city, and you know, new language, new country by myself, basically. So it felt like I'm gonna start all over again, even though I knew, I mean, I'm an hour away from the city. I knew that it wasn't a full start over, but it sort of felt a little bit like that. So like the fact that I met you was such a like, oh, okay, there's people out there. I'm gonna have at least one friend.
I love that. I didn't actually know that side of the story,
Yeah.
all the background to that. And it's interesting too because our friend, she had a cacao ceremony the week before as well. And I was trying to go to that one and there was just resistance and it was like, the energy, like going for those of the people who are listening that know the commute from Long Island to the city. Everybody thinks, oh, you're just like an hour away. That's so quick. You must be there all the time. No,
Yeah, yeah,
not
yeah,
really.
exactly.
It's not that quick and easy. It's like, it's kind of,
It's a
it
track.
feels like an ordeal.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I feel it more and more. I feel like when we just moved, it was so fresh that we were just going to the city all the time. And now I'm like very selective of like my treks to the city and really not going that often anymore, which is fine. It's been a great balance of time in the city and in the overstimulation and the chaos, and then coming back here to the silence and the plants and the
Yeah.
water. It's
And
nice.
your beautiful garden oasis that you've
Yes,
cultivated there.
yes, my safe haven here. Now I'm like, I could never, I had so much resistance of moving here and leaving the city. And now that I'm here, I'm like, why did it took me so long? So amazing. I'm like loving it.
Yeah. And it's so interesting how that does come to be like all that resistance and push against something. And then finally, once we actually step into it, it's like the cave we fear to enter in a way that
Yeah,
has
yeah.
everything that we desire.
Absolutely. Yeah, even that ceremony, I wasn't gonna go either, and I was supposed to go to the one the week before, but I was, in the midst of a giant move out of the city and having all these things, but I hadn't seen our friend, and I was like, I think I really need this,
Yeah.
but I don't feel like talking to anyone, and I don't really want to socialize right now, but ultimately, I think the purpose of me going was actually meeting you.
Yeah. And that day, like the week before when I was trying to get into the city, it was so hard and resistance and it didn't work out. And then the week after, she was actually like, I'm doing another one. I was like, that's awesome. I'll do it. It's a Wednesday. Got it.
And it was kind
And
of
that,
last minute too. I
it was last
remember,
minute.
like, 'cause she had that one plan, and I guess so many people showed up that she was like, I guess I'm gonna have another one. I was like, oh, I think I can make that one. Very
Yeah.
synergistic.
And it was very easy. Like that was just get on and then be in the moment and moment by moment. And it led to this beautiful
Yay.
co-creation here and many more to come. I would love to ask you about how you came to also work with Cacao and your initial experiences there. What led you on
Yeah.
this path?
Yeah, it's actually been a long journey for me with Cacao. Really interesting now that I look back at it, now that, it's such a like big part of my life. But I actually had my first encounter with Cacao maybe 8 or 9 years ago. I was volunteering in Costa Rica for this volunteer program that I did through the United Nations for the global goals back in my more activist days. Not that I'm not doing activism now, it's just in a different way. That was a little more political, I guess. So I was in Costa Rica for 2 months and I kind of didn't know what I was getting myself into, honestly. I signed up for this thing and I'm like, all right, I'm going to Costa Rica for 2 months and I'm going to be working with nature and doing all these natural projects, supporting one of the global goals. And I ended up completely off the grid in the top of a mountain in the middle of the jungle with access to absolutely nothing, no internet, no hot water. I didn't know that that was the deal. It ended up being incredible, of course. I mean, I got to spend 2 months off the grid in the jungle, surrounded by. I mean, this place wasn't even like accessible. We couldn't leave. There was a neighbor that lived a 30-minute walk down the mountain, and that was the closest thing to society that we had. And he would pick us up in his truck. He was just like wild jungle man, really funny. And he would pick us up and drive us down to the nearest town, which was like 2 hours in his truck, in the back of his truck, 7 of us, just, yeah. And I spent Christmas up there, and he invited us over to his house for Christmas with his wife and kids. They were making dinner, and we show up, and him and his family have this fully functional homesteading, I guess you would call that. Not really what that is, I guess, but you know, they were growing all their own food. They actually digged a pond and put fish in it, and they would fish from their little pond for dinner. And they had all these plants, and we were making like tamales from scratch and all these things. And they had a cacao tree. So the wife showed us the cacao pods and like cut it and gave us the fruit and like and like we made chocolate. We made we made cacao and chocolate bars and from scratch. And I was so fascinated. I was like, I didn't know that this is where chocolate came from, you know, and I studied food technology. I should know this. But yeah, that was my first encounter with this. Oh, cacao is actually a fruit, and it tastes like completely different from what I thought the fruit would be like. But that was my first encounter with it. And then a few years later, when I moved to New York, a friend of mine, who used to be my friend back then, had this project of having a cacao company. This was like 6 years ago, and she invited me to participate in it. So this was a little more health oriented than spiritual. It was basically like a superfood company with the main focus of cacao seeds and all of the benefits of cacao seeds. So that's when I sort of started. I got a few books about it, and started learning the connection with the Mayan and Aztecs and Toltecs. And I was like, oh, I actually never knew about this, even though I grew up in Mexico and I went to school in Mexico. Like, none of this was ever taught to us. And I was so fascinated by it. And I was part of this company for a while. And towards the end, I started learning a little more about the spiritual aspects of it. And I was also going through my own spiritual awakening and going to therapy and all the things. And then actually, this company was a big catalyst for my spiritual exploration, because it didn't end up in the greatest note. I ended up taking a step back and having to like cut ties with this lifelong friend, and it was really like a really difficult thing that sort of like catalyzed like a lot of stuff for me. And as soon as I like stepped out of that, I sort of find my own way back into like cacao from a more spiritual perspective. Because even though I stepped away from that, I was like, but I love cacao. I'm already like eating cacao every day. I was just munching on cacao seeds all the time and going hikes. That would be my pre-workout or what I would eat on the trail or things like that. So I was still really into cacao, but didn't want it to be part of that anymore. Yeah, I sort of like took a step back, and then I don't even know how. I guess I just continued on my own and then found my own path to started working with cacao and with plant medicine. Suddenly, I'm not only eating cacao seeds all the time, but I'm also drinking cacao, and one thing led to another, and I took this training. I'm trying to think like if there was like a person or something that actually like introduced me to like the real spirituality of cacao, but I think I was just microdosing like cacao spirituality for years before I actually really decided to dive into it, or really felt like the call to dive into it. But when I did, when one day just made like clicked for me, and I did this training with Tata Isaías and Nana Isabel from Level Up Cacao. They're in Guatemala, and it was really amazing. I think it was like 9 months or something, or 7 months or something like that, that we would get together for like 5 hours every month and really diving into the Mayan calendar and, you know, the Nahuales, and giving us all these books. And I started reading all these books about the like invasion and the conquest and the Spanish coming, and all these legends about what happened. And it was, I mean, blowing me away. First, that I felt kind of like robbed of this knowledge, that how come I never got taught any of this in school. I didn't really, I mean, I knew that they existed, the Mayans and the many native communities. We learned about them in school, but very just sort of like, this is a list of native communities that lived in Mexico sort of thing. I don't really remember too much anyway, but I was just so fascinated, and so many things like started to make sense, like reading some of the stories and realizing, oh, that's why people are like this particular way in Mexico. This is the wound, like root of a lot of racism in Mexico towards natives, and a lot of, I don't know, just a lot of things started clicking and making sense for me. And I just went into this rabbit hole of reading so many books and watching documentaries and really understanding my roots and my ancestry in ways that I didn't even know were possible. And drinking cacao every day and learning from Tata Isaías, who's like an amazing teacher and so loving and so passionate about sharing cacao. And yeah, it's been, I guess, like 2 years of that I took that training, and to this day I'm still very much in contact with him, and I do like online ceremonies when I can, and I have continued studying and learning and reading books, and even going a little bit deeper into like other Mexican traditions, because there's so many, there's so much. And it's funny because I feel like I would look in so many places for answers before, you know, like astrology and Buddhism and like all these other traditions, and I feel like I found so much of what I was looking for here in like the Maya tradition and the Maya calendar, and realizing like, whoa, there's so much wisdom, there's so much amazing information, and so much that's here that's sort of like overlooked. It's waking up a lot more actually. But like 10 years ago, nobody would really talk about any of this, at least not in the environments that I was moving in.
Yeah. Or the only part would just be the end of the world, right? From the
Oh,
mind.
of course, yeah, yeah. That we knew of, which was obviously completely wrong because here we are. But yeah, it's been, my path with cacao has been so much about reconnecting with my Mexican roots, and so interesting that it took me leaving to like find myself back into it. And yeah, now cacao is such a big part of my life, and something that I use almost every day, and I share with others in ceremony and in many different ways. Yeah, I'm really grateful for everything that I've learned and all the paths that have been opened because of this. It's been really like transformational and amazing.
What parts of your own culture of growing up in Mexico and being raised and actually not having the information shared with you in the schools, if there's anything you wish to share a little bit more about how you began to heal your own relationship and where you come from maybe how you used to look at your country before and how you relate to your roots
Yeah.
now, and maybe the gap in the society there.
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually grew up very close to native communities. I didn't grow up close to any Maya like community. I grew up in Sonora, which is northern Mexico. It borders Arizona, so like in the desert. So no cacao there, just a lot of sun, a lot of sun and heat. But there are native communities around my hometown, the Yaquis and the Seris. And it's a very complicated relationship between people and the native communities, especially in my hometown, because we're so close. Like they're literally right there. And I always grew up hearing over and over again how, the Jackies are like drunks and don't add anything to society and like all these things, because there's also a lot of water issues because there's no water. We depend on rain for water. And yeah, I think like the cities have taken, I don't think, the cities have taken so much of the water at the expense of the native communities, of course, as you know, as the story goes and as the pattern repeats itself. There's just so much conflict. The main highway that sort of goes through my state passes through the middle of this communities. Sometimes as a protest, they will block the highways, and people would get upset because now they can't get to the beach or whatever. So I guess I grew up with this negative connotation around the Jackies and no appreciation whatsoever for the heavy culture that they have, actually. Now that I see it, I'm like, wow, really amazing. A lot of traditions, and yeah, the deer is very sacred. And yeah, I guess I just grew up with this idea that they're there and we're here and they want to take the water and they're all drunks and all of this really negative stuff that's said about them. Now I see it completely different, of course, and I've even read books about like the traditions that they had before, we took it all. And it's sad because I think it's mainly lost, if not completely lost by now. It's like a difficult thing. And then and it's still happening now. Like even I go back now and I hear people still saying things like, oh, they're fighting for water again, they want water. And I'm like, of course they want water, this is their land and we should give them water, because the water we're using is all of the water we're using is for Coke has a huge industry in my hometown, and so those Constellation Brands, which is a big beer company, they take all the water. We're not even getting the water, they're getting the water. I don't even understand why those high water intensive companies are in my hometown when there's no water. People don't see that. They see, no, the native communities want their water. Yeah. I guess because they were here before us. I don't know. Maybe this crazy idea that they also deserve water. And so yeah, so learning about all of this also led me to learn about the communities near me, learning about how the Spanish coming, the things they would do and say. Your life was at risk for looking native. They sort of came and were like, all right, everything you believe in now is fake, and we have your new God, Christ. And it's funny because there's this thing where there was human sacrifice happening, right? Within like Mayan and Aztecs, within those traditions. And they came and were like, we're getting rid of human sacrifice. We're not doing that anymore with this new religion that we have. But if you don't believe in it, we'll kill you. So yeah, no human sacrifice. They only murdered millions of people. What was happening back then was your chances of survival were so much higher if you married Spanish person that came with the invasion. And so I feel like I would see a lot in my hometown this need growing up, this idea that being whiter and light eyes was better. And this constant like, oh, you don't want to marry or you don't want to date that dark person, like native looking person. And through reading all of these stories, it sort of clicked for me. A lot of the comments of, whenever a baby's born, ooh, he's pale, you know, good, so pretty, immediately associating beauty to light skin. And reading all those stories of like actually mothers pushing their daughters to marry Spanish people so they would survive. It was a survival mechanism to be with people with paler skin and marry people with paler skin. And also it became this people, like white people are better, like royals, and the natives are, you know, below. So it just feels like generations and generations and generations passed, and the seed of being with someone that's a pale skin is better stayed, but the survival is no longer there. It used to be for survival, but now it just turned into this deep ingrained belief that is just part of society in Mexico. And like understanding that, I was like, oh, so where that comes from. Now I get it. Even like I experience a lot of that because my sisters are very white and have light green eyes, and I have dark hair and darker skin. So I was always seen as the not so pretty one because my skin was darker, and a lot of comparison in those ways. Seeing it from this perspective, I was like, okay, this is just actually a deep rooted wound of Mexican society, and the Spanish coming and planting this belief that it's better to be whiter and you may do better in life, you may survive better, you may get a better job, you may have more opportunities in life, things are gonna be easier. So that's one of the things that I explored a lot and I read a lot about it. And like there's so many things that I continue to just be like, oh wow, that's where that comes from. Seeing Mexico in a whole new eye. Because I also had, you know, I grew up in, it's difficult in Mexico. I think I left like, ugh, I'm done with Mexico, you know? I don't want this looking over my shoulder all the time. Am I safe? Feeling in danger all the time. And the very macho thing with men and women, that I didn't really love. It took me living and learning all these things. I think the way I see it is that I was so in it, living in Mexico, and the struggle that comes with that. Stepping out, I was able to see the culture as a whole and the traditions as a whole, and take a little bit of step of like a step away from like the struggle that was growing up there, and the unsafety and the corruption and all of those things, to be like, oh man, Mexico is amazing, and the culture is amazing, and the traditions are amazing, and the food is amazing, and everything is amazing. There's just so much wounding that it's built upon, and so much death and genocide and like displacement and destruction that there's so much misdirected energy.
Yeah. I've met very few people who have that really strong, full love for where they've come from and haven't had those growing pains at some point. And it's like any city, you could live in the best city in the world sometimes, and it's still like, no. But when you're in the structure of it, you see all the imperfections, you see everything that can be better and change. And then you kind of go on that journey, the hero's journey outward, and see the world and take in new perspective and vantage points, and then can also begin to heal that aspect and be like, oh wait, actually there are all these things are also really beautiful, and it's holding like the darkness with the light, and being able to hold all that. And I think that's something that, I deal with as being a human on this earth, with everything that's happening these days and everything that's happened in the past. And it's like, how do we how do we hear and know all of these awful things happen, and then still just live our life and be in the present and do sometimes the really mundane things? I'm curious to see if there's any insight that you have on that, and being an activist and the role that played in your life, and how you use these practices now with plant medicine to heal and balance the shadow and the heaviness that we as humans go through in life, and alchemize that into something that is more constructive.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think being in Mexico, living the Mexican like struggle was tough, but then having distance from it helped me see the complexity of it. Yeah, there's a lot of difficult things, and in my hometown there's a lot of, it's really dangerous, like a lot of narco and stuff. So like a lot of negative connotation that I had, but now I get to also see all the good things that maybe I wasn't appreciating there, and like sort of holding both. And yeah, and I think that applies in everything. If you give yourself a little bit of space from your problems and like the things that seem really difficult, and you create a little bit of distance, can give you that perspective to see the whole picture. But yeah, I think in my activist times, my call has always been with the earth, and protecting the earth and protecting nature. So when I started, I was protesting and whatever, rebelling against the system basically, and going to UN things and all this, more political side. And I just got so burned out and so hopeless being in those spaces, and feeling like so much, like there was just no coherence. I would go to this big UN assemblies in New York and Climate Week and all these things, and these huge conferences that they would put on with all these big names talking about how important it is to take care of the ocean and like regulation and all of these things. But at the same time, the conversation is happening and 90% of people are on their phone. They're all drinking water like from their plastic bottles that they're giving out. They're serving meat. It just didn't make sense to me. And I just felt like I was doing all of these things and nothing was going anywhere, if that makes sense. Like I was like, what is the point of all of this? We're protesting, but is that actually gonna change things? I'm not seeing real, I don't know. That was just how I was feeling. And I decided to take a little step back. I was like, I can't, like, this is not good. I have enough mental health stuff to like also add this on, you know? So I sort of took a step back, and when I started working more with plants, and I sort of had this realization one day that there's many ways to tackle the same issue. And maybe the way that I was coming to this particular one wasn't the one that was the most effective or working the best for me. And I was like, maybe I can't make the president of the United States change the laws to actually support people in nature, but I can guide people around me in my community to connect to nature better, and to go back to doing something as simple as eating more plants and using less plastic, and do these tiny shifts in their life that actually have an impact, even if they're tiny. It actually makes a difference. And it opened my eyes to see the deep disconnection, especially in the city, from people, especially with food. I think that was like a really big one for me, because food has always been a big part of my life. I mean, my culture is heavily rooted around food. My hometown, there's nothing to do. It's so hot year round, like you can't be outside, so all we do is get together and eat all the time. We're always cooking together, we're always eating, we're always doing food. And I went and I studied food science, and like I would come here and realizing that because people only shop in the supermarket where everything is already packaged and processed, like there's no connection to like actually how food is made and growth. And there, yeah, just seeing this deep disconnection of what is food and where food comes from, I was like, they could change the laws right now, and I feel like it wouldn't have the bigger effect, because people want to, like, they only know this way of living that's really harmful. What needs to happen is for people to see things differently and to understand the ways they're playing into the system that maybe they don't see. And I was like, I think I'm better off helping people reconnect with themselves and reconnecting with the earth and reconnecting with food and with plants than of protesting and trying to make a lawmaker change something that, because that's not the root. The root is all of us. It's all of us taking responsibility for the way we live our lives. And like, people want change, but they don't want to change. Like they're all like, yeah, no more plastic, but drink water in plastic like bottles every day. So like I feel like then the bottom needs to change, and it's a lot slower, I get it, but it's the root of it all, like how, like this disconnection of people not understanding the impact of the things that they have, and like their habits, and like the simple things as drinking water and eating heavily processed food all the time, and not understanding how a zucchini grows. You know, I think it's all very important. So like once that clicked for me, I was like, okay, I actually don't need to do the activism anymore, and I still do in my own way. I think live my life in a very activist way, but from a very different perspective, in a way that it doesn't tear my soul.
Yeah. 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 Thank you for sharing all that and bringing that aspect of going local again, serving the community that we have right here at our fingertips. And that's something that I've struggled with for a while too, where it's like wanting to make a larger impact, or also the resistance to being on Long Island of like, I just want to be anywhere but here. Suburbia is destroying me. But the way that those beliefs also don't help myself or my community, I could make an impact here right now and change. And and I am, now that I decided to be okay with where I am. It's like, okay, I'm here. There are amazing people here. I have amazing people right down the block here, right down the block. And the shifting in the consciousness of, yeah, we actually do have the impact that we want to have if we focus our energy locally. And what can I do in my home? What can I do for my community? And I think a lot of times, well, at least in like in media growing up and in the schools, you know, what is the programming that I received is to make the difference. You know, you be a president, like you have to be a celebrity, a star, have a huge following in order to make any sort of impact, and all these really lofty goals that might not actually align with what you actually do. So then there's a discrepancy between like, I need to make this huge change making a small change isn't big enough, it isn't good enough, and it won't make a difference. But I think that is such a flawed premise that we were taught. That actually, that's the biggest thing you can do is start here. First of all, start here with you and your body.
Yeah.
Start in your home, taking care of your home, taking care of your land, and then reach out little by little. What communities are you a part of? The school communities and local people out there. So I love that, bringing it local.
I think about it all the time. Every Sunday that I go to the farmers market, my main week priority doesn't matter what anything that's happening, I will be at the farmers market on Sunday. and and that small shift of buying your produce from the local farmers market rather than the big supermarket that's like importing all the vegetables from who knows where. It's already such a small effort and such a big impact. And there's so many good things that happen with globalization, but I think we went too far with the globalization and this idea that and I mean, this is, I think we all struggle with it, or a lot of people do, of like thinking that I have to reach so many people, I have to do this big thing, I have to have all like the millions of followers. And I even see that as part of the system, as part of the root of, they want us to believe that we're not capable of doing something meaningful unless it's like gigantic. And I like disagree so much. I I actually purposefully like keeping things small. I like the intimacy of like small ceremonies and small communities and small, like, because if you join a community with 3,000 people, how do you even, like, like
Yeah.
it's too big. I'm overwhelmed by thinking about it. So like just returning to us here in our immediate community, we I feel like we focus so much energy in everything that's happening everywhere else in the world when we have the chance to be here in this space that we're in and actually try to do something that's meaningful. And it may not change the world, but it can change this little like part of the world and this little community, or impact 10 people. That's something. That's 10 people that used to not do something good and now they're doing something better, or have more awareness, or are having better shopping habits. And the little things I think do matter. And I really believe in the impact of the little things. And I'm all for little impact. Tiny impact, yes.
I'm curious now from your perspective too, because we're talking about, bringing things local, but then we're using a plant medicine that doesn't come from where we are.
Yeah.
So, what is your feeling about and your perspective around using plants like cacao that aren't necessarily native to the lands that we come from, and what are your feelings around that?
Yeah, I really think that it's all about balance, because many good things came with globalization, like plant medicines stretching out and touching more people. And with plant medicine in particular, I think that the plants have an agenda too, and even I was in this conversation with an abuelo from like a cacao community from Mexico a couple weeks ago, and he was sharing about this how do you call them, like prediction, like Mayas have so many like predictions. And like yeah, can't remember the exact word, but there was this like prediction that there was one day, and because somebody asked like, how do you feel about like so many people using and serving cacao now, which is like the eternal question I asked every teacher all the time. Because I think about it all the time, you know. I'm like, am I doing harm? Like, am I participating in the thing that I don't want to participate in? Or and I am, because we all are, because it's impossible not to, especially living in New York. But like, how can I reduce these ways, you know, and like be aware of the ways that I am participating in this? So I think about it all the time. And he said that there was this prediction that there was one day that cacao was gonna sort of like stretch out of the jungle and wake up the consciousness of millions of people around the world. So he was like, we knew that this was coming. We known, like, this is in the old books. We knew that there was a time that this was going to happen. He was like, I knew that this was coming, and basically just said, you know, as long as there's respect and respect for the traditions and for the plants that you're using, and all of that is fine. And even when I talk to Isaías, he always brings this up of, if this is something that's good for you and it's helping you and you're being respectful, and like, he's like, you're here, you're learning, like, you're part of this community, why would you not use it? So for me, it's all about balance and about intention. I think intention, it's important for me, and it's really big. I try not to just use cacao every day just for the sake of it, and just sipping cacao away while I'm like watching TV or like sitting in my computer, and like actually try to use it with intention. And I feel this way about all plant medicine. It's not about, I don't think the problem is using it. I think the problem can be more about the capitalization, the consumerism, and like exploitation. Like, and it's hard to know where we draw the lines there, right? Like, when does it become exploitation and when is it just spiritual use? Or there's another Mayan teacher that I was in a talk with, and she said, you know, she was talking about cacao, and she was like, there's a lot of people out there, you know, saying that they're doing the ceremonies and this Mayan like tradition, this and that, and she's like, but you're not, because only us can do that. And even if somebody told you that you are, like, just name it something differently. Don't say that it's a Maya ceremony, because it's not. And somebody said, but what about like the big chocolate corporations? Like, why are you not like calling them out, and you're calling the people out that are really like, ceremonial cacao is such a small percentage of the cacao in the world if you look at it like the bigger perspective. But she gave this perspective that I really loved. She said, okay, so if these big corporations are dumping thousands of pounds of trash into the ocean, and you're upset at that, but then you go and you do the same thing because you're like, oh, my trash is so little compared to their big trash, so you're just gonna pollute because yours is small and theirs is big, like, but you're polluting too. Like, the point is to how can you engage with things in a way that's not polluting and that's not hurting. So the way that I engage with it is, you know, really be mindful of my consumption and like keep myself in check constantly, even when it's uncomfortable, and like knowing when I'm crossing a line and like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, and ask too, you know. I feel like that's important, especially with like native traditions and things like that. Ask the natives. They are so open, and they are so compassionate and willing to teach and to share and to guide. And really, all it takes is asking. So I ask a lot. But also, yeah, keeping myself in check and really paying attention to where I'm shopping and where is my money going. Where is the cacao coming from? Where is this plant medicine coming from? Who's facilitating the ceremony that I'm going to? And like, what is their connection to this work? You know, like really put attention and not just do things for the sake of doing or for the experience, or, you know, and really like pay attention to all the like little things and where things come from and how they're harvested, and like what is like the life of the people who are harvesting this cacao. Like, you know, like really pay attention to all of that. And I do, and I only shop from places that I have done research on and I feel aligned with, and I don't go to events that I feel like are misusing, and maybe I'm wrong, you know. Like, I'm not one to say you're doing something wrong and you're not, but if it doesn't feel right, or if it feels like, oh, I don't know about this event or this thing where they're claiming to share cacao or whatever, I just don't go. And yeah, try to be as respectful as I can. And I really think that it's important for us to commune with these medicines. I think there's a reason why cacao and so many other plant medicines are suddenly having this boom. And I think we need each other, you know? Like, they need us because we're gonna destroy them. And we're gonna destroy all of it if they don't help us remember the connection and remember that we are nature, and that we are cacao, and that we are corn, and that we're part of it all. So I think it's actually like a dynamic of like these plants are coming to us because they want to teach us, but it's also for their own survival. They're, you know, this plant spirits are very smart and very wise, and they know what they're doing. And I like to think that it's like a co-creation with them. So I don't really think like we need to stay away from all plant medicine, and like, but also really have awareness of like how much am I drinking and why, and what's the point, and who am I drinking with, and where is this money going, and where is this medicine coming from, and who's harvesting it, and like really pay attention to all of those things.
Yeah. Those are all very valuable tips.
Yeah.
And things to look out for. There was an aspect right on the tip of my tongue that I wanted to dive into with you. But I just want to reflect on, yeah, that aspect of, oh yeah, that's what it was. That the plants have their own agenda. I love that, because I say that all the time too. And a question I like to ask people is like, what do you think Mama Cacao's mission is at this time? And yeah, I love that you answered that of it's almost like their survival defense mechanism. It's like, all right, we got to teach these humans
Yeah.
what's really going on so that we
Yeah.
all survive. And listening to Braiding Sweetgrass again, and just the messages and wisdom that are shared in that book are so beautiful and powerful. And the reminder of like, yeah, plants have been here way longer than us humans. And we come in like we're the all-knowing ones, that we know all about this. We're better than the plants. And the plants are like, all right, chill out.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me show you.
Yeah, that'll take you on a journey. And I know that you have, so first of all, you are also a sound healer. And I'm curious for you to share a little bit about that, and maybe how that ties in with plant medicine, because you also have a beautiful garden and work with local plant and botany here, local to Long Island, and how take it in whatever direction you feel compelled to. If it's more local plant medicine or the sound healing, or how they play off of each other?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, sound has actually been as big of a journey and part of my journey as like plant medicine has been, because it sort of started together, and I feel like it's almost, yeah, it's really been so synergistic, and the more I dive into plant medicine, also the deeper like I dive into sound. So it's interesting because I do so much work with like plants and sound and plants and voice and all these things. And I think at this point, I have come to see like sound and plants as like a like this co-creational field that is created with sound and plants. And I love creating this little like environments of people communing with plants and sound for healing. And plants are just so incredible. I'm so enthusiastic about plants and all of them, like, yes, like strong plant medicine, but also mugwort or, rose, or all the like plants, rosemary that I have like out here that I'm looking at. And I think they all have their little agenda. Some of them have maybe more like a stronger spirit, or like can do bigger things, but they're all so necessary and they all play a role, of course, because it's an ecosystem, and like they all play their little roles. And I feel like we tend to like, there's a tendency to like have this plant is for this thing only, put things in boxes. I mean, I think it's a tendency for everything to put things in boxes and like, this is for this is for that, I am this thing and that's it, but both plants and humans were just so much more complex than that. And so when I started my journey with plant medicine and sound, I really started exploring this role of like sound and the plant energy together, and exploring the like different journeys and the different ways we can engage with plants and sound. And it's been really it's been really amazing. I'm so passionate about sound. I love more than anything. I mean, I sit here in this room every day for hours. Every breathing second that I have free, I spend it making music. And I feel like when you're working with a plant, and like sound, can really act as a vessel of inner exploration. It can really help you go in journeys supported by different plants, whether they're psychoactive or not, it doesn't really matter. I feel like it's important for people to remember that plants are a part of our lives, and they're here for so many more reasons than the little idea that we have. This plant is only for this, but plants are so complex and they can do so many things, and there's so many uses that you can have for one plant, and integrating those into our lives, it's just so important. For me, has been really important to something as simple as I woke up feeling a little bit agitated and anxious, and I know that I can just grab my French press and put some chamomile and some tulsi and some lemon balm, and that I'm gonna feel better. And that's really all it takes. And I think that's like a communion with the plants that it's also happening. It's sort of like drinking cacao, but with different plants, and like knowing the effects that these plants have on us, and that they're really our allies, that they're here to support us. Just they need us and we need them, you know. They need us to tend them and to care for them, and we need them so that we can be chill and so we can be calm. So integrating plants into my everyday life has been like so important. And I do it in so many ways. Sometimes I feel like I need a plant bed, and I'll just brew plants from the yard and some tobacco, and I'll literally just pour the plant water on me, or make a tincture, or make tea, which is my favorite. I make like teas every day. I have this like idea that I've never brought forward, but I do it with myself, which is my deeper
Can't
exploration
wait
is
to
always
hear
with
it.
myself. Yeah.
Yes.
But like I'll make a tea and I'm like, all right, let's see what Tulsi has to say. And I'll like, meditate with Tulsi, and like do some sound for myself to take myself on a journey with different plants. And I like mugwort I've been working so much with lately. And I even feel like mugwort wants to work with me because it just grows in my yard like crazy. It's insane. I have so much, I don't know what to do with it.
Give some to me.
Yeah, seriously, there's so much. I was just making like incense sticks
So
that I made from
beautiful.
mugworts. I'm like, the winter is coming. It's so nice.
I wish I could smell it through the screen right
Yeah,
now. I was about to lean in
I'll
first.
leave you. I'll stop by and give you one. But there's so much, and like I really want to use it. But yeah, I have this idea. Wouldn't it be amazing to just have a plant ceremony with just a regular old plant, where like we're just all communing with like rosemary, and we have a sound journey and this connection with this just regular old plant. Because I feel like so many people, when you think of sound and plant medicine, you think of a crazy psychedelic ceremony, which is awesome too, and I love that too, but it doesn't always has to be like that, you know. It can also be this like very gentle and nice ceremony with chamomile, where you're just very relaxed, and you get to commune with the spirit, because they all have spirits. Yes, some spirits maybe are a lot stronger than others, but all plants have spirits, and we can connect with all of them: dandelion, chamomile, mugwort, rose, you know, everything, anything that grows outside. I'm constantly like exploring, you know, all these like plants are growing. I'm like, what is this? What is that? What can I do with this one? And exploring the different ways that I can integrate plants into my life and nature into my life, and yeah, and create spaces for communion with those plants, whatever that plant is, or even communion with just sound, which is also such an amazing medicine. It's been so important in my journey. It's coming back to yourself and regulating and like harmonizing. Yeah. I see my husband picking some herbs right now. It's funny.
What is he picking? What is the message? What's the oracle of the
I
garden?
think he's picking rosemary or mint, either one, because he's right where the rosemary and the mint is. Oh, it's mint. Mint and rosemary.
Oh,
What is he doing?
that's okay. He's gonna make you a tea.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah,
A nice
I
little.
I love everything that you shared in that. I think that aspect of, certain, just like people, some people, like I have notoriously been called a soft talker, where
Mhm.
you have to listen a little deeper. Maybe you need to be in a quieter space. Maybe the mind needs to be quieter. Maybe that plant doesn't communicate in a way that you're expecting it to. And for me, remembering, and because sometimes I get caught up in society here, especially on Long Island, where it's like go go go, like that
Mhm.
caffeine buzz that's just like hanging around everywhere. And it's like, all right, I need cacao, matcha, mate, maybe some coffee, whatever it is that gives me that edge so I can push and gives me that energy and the stamina. And sometimes it's like, I'm like, no, chamomile, I need something stronger. And then sometimes I come back to that and it's like, no, that's exactly what I need for that softness,
Hmm.
for the deeper conversation that needs to happen right there. And Tulsi was such a big herb in my life, especially on my journey, working with like depression and
Hmm.
healing myself from the inside, healing my mind. And once I came across like holy basil and Tulsi, it was like, wow, this is such a hug. I knew Tulsi way long before I knew cacao,
Yeah. Oh
and
wow.
just this deep, warm embrace and like the grounding effects that I felt with this plant. And for me, it's really about allowing myself to be quiet enough to listen to the plant that I'm about to connect with. And even
Yeah.
if it's like salad, with it's still
Absolutely.
plant
Yeah.
medicine.
I say that all the time in like ceremonies that I do that I talk a lot about. I mean, some of the ceremonies I do are like particularly around like plant exploitation and having like a more conscious relationship with plants and with plant medicine. And I'm like, yes, like we're talking about particular plants, but I'm also talking about broccoli, like about all the plants. Like every plant that we isolate to grow, it's a plant that's exploited. All plants need ecosystems. All plants thrive in community just like we do. So when we like isolate plants for monoculture, then there's exploitation. When we see things from that perspective, I think it can change a little bit the way we like engage with them or be more grateful, or even try to find, plants that don't come from that environment and that come from like a more uh, regenerative background. And yeah, and to just plant those seeds of like how can I just be a little bit more respectful to nature? What little things can I do in my life to treat plants better and like not participate in like the mass exploitation of plants, all plants, coffee, cacao for chocolate and for, yeah, for, I mean, so many plants are so mistreated and so misunderstood. And I think there's like a really beautiful thing of removing this idea of like, oh, these are weeds. I have an upstairs neighbor, and there's all this mugwort growing, and I'm watering it, like I'm tending for it. It's my mugwort. I don't see it as like the weed growing. I see it as my mugwort growing. And the other day, I'm out there, and the neighbor walks by, and she's like, "Oh, I have a big saw. If you want to chop all of this off, I can do that for you." I'm like, "No, why would you do that?" I'm like, "No, I use this." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Yeah, like I use it." And she's like, "For what?" I'm like, "Well,
Let me tell you.
many things." Down, grab a cup of tea. And she was like, "That's fascinating. Like, I would have only see this as a weed. Like, if you asked me, that's a weed." I'm like, "Well, weeds don't exist. That's just a concept that we gave to plants to sort of like demote plants from like their start, like dandelion." I'm like, "Why does everybody call dandelion a weed? I don't understand. It's like an amazing flower. I love it. Like, all gardeners, stay away from my dandelion." And yes, she was like, "That's fascinating. Like, I would only see this as a weed. Like, I would have never thought that it has any other uses." I'm like, all plants have uses. All plants have something to say if you're quiet enough to listen to them. Yeah.
And I love that you brought in well, first of all, the multi uses of the plants, but also the different ways that we can use these plant medicines as well, where it's not only about consuming and consumption. And I feel like, again, another thing that I constantly have to decondition myself of is like, the only thing you do is like drink and eat. It's like, no,
Hmm.
there's so many other ways to relate to the world than just eating, consuming. And I love that you brought in plant baths. And there is this really beautiful activation ceremony I did with different herbs, and one being basil and rosemary, of just like rubbing it on yourself to cleanse your energy and allow the rosemary to absorb whatever it is, and then burning it as an offering. And I'm curious if, and I mean, if tinctures and teas and oxymelons and all those types of ways to physically ingest. But if there are other rituals that you have and like would like to share, because I'm sure there are some listeners like, ooh, how can I actually use these plants
I
more?
I have so many rituals that I really just I love exploring things, and I really like, I'm not so much, I think, of like learning. I don't want anybody, I mean, I do of course study and do all these things, but I don't necessarily want to like, oh, I'm gonna learn how to do this ritual that this person taught me and like then do that. Like I actually just want to explore how I feel called to work with certain like plants and stuff. So I'm trying to think. I mean, the plant beds are big. I love doing plant beds, and I don't have a tub. Yeah, I don't have a bathtub. So I really just make them and like pour them on me. But like for example with mugwort, sometimes I just like cut a long like stalk and like hit myself with it like as sort of like a cleansing thing. I'm trying to think. Sometimes I also just love having like I work so much with tobacco, and sometimes I like to just leave like little bundles of tobacco like around certain parts of my house, or like just put tobacco here or there, and a sort of like a protective thing. I do a lot of offerings too. Like sometimes I'll cut some plants from outside and I'll walk down to the bay right here and like offer that to the water. Sometimes I'll even take like cacao and some plants and I'll just do offerings. I really try to just improvise. I mean, this was a total like I've never done this before. I sort of like I had so much mugwort and I was like, what could I do with it? I was like, oh, I guess I'm just gonna try to make some incense sticks. I'm sure that's gonna be nice. And it is. It smells amazing. I love it. So I really try to be creative in the ways that I engage with nature and plants, and like what do I feel called to do? Do I feel like rubbing this on my skin? Do I feel like making oils? Do I feel like doing plant beds or hitting myself with plants, or really just I mean, this one's tough because there's so many mosquitoes right now. Well, not so much right now, but like in the midst of the summer. But sometimes I just want to sit next to the plant and meditate with it and just see what that's like. And yeah, make incense, like smoke. I love smoking plants, all kinds. Mullein or lavender or rose, and yeah, or with rose I do a lot of stuff, whether it's to just have roses here or like pass roses around my body or make rose water, or just have whatever comes to mind at that time. But I think it's important for people to not always be looking at somebody to tell you how to engage with nature, but find a way that it feels good for you, or that it's available to you, or that, oh, like maybe all those things that sound like something I want to do, but I like this thing came to mind for me, and like I'm gonna do that. There's no right or wrong way to engage with nature. There's no like, of course there are many like set rituals that you can do for particular things, but also like like we co-create with it, and we can like just explore and see how do I engage with it. Maybe I just sit next to a tree and meditate, or, you know, maybe I just watch it from inside, or, you know, because I feel like sometimes we think of like connecting with nature as a like a really complicated thing or like an accessible thing. I have to go to a national park and like be removed from everything so that I can connect to nature. Where really you can just go to a park and walk barefoot or sit. Like when I lived in Brooklyn, I had a tree that was like my tree in a park, and I would like go almost every day and I would sit under the tree and I would like play my flute for the tree and I would sing for the tree and I would just hang out with this tree. And like that was my way of connecting with nature, even though I didn't have a lot of access to nature. But I have access to a tree, you know, everybody hopefully has access to at least a tree.
Yeah. Yeah. I I love all of those shares again. And thinking about that too, where sometimes I find myself a little bit too cooped up. And I have a beautiful backyard, but it's very open. So it's not as convenient to just, and a lot of mosquitoes, unfortunately. But today, this morning, I woke up and I was like, I just want to like snuggle up in a tree. Like that's all I want. And I was in a park, and I found a great tree, and I was right up in there, and I was like, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
just exactly what I needed. Thank
Finding a
you.
good tree is important. Yeah, every time I'm like walking around, I'm like, oh, good tree. Let me go
Yeah.
say hi to a good tree.
Thank you for everything you shared so far. And I'm curious if there's anything else that you feel called to share, and if it's about cacao, sound, plant medicine, or just anything that's on your heart. I'd love to hear.
Well, thank you so much for the space. It's been exactly what it's called. It's such a nice conversation with Cacao. I'm just really grateful to be here and share, and hopefully this resonates with people in a way that they can start bringing a little more consciousness and mindfulness in the way that we engage with plants, all plants, and remember that it can be as simple as just shopping better to connect with nature and like understand where things come from. And so thank you so much for the space. I'm so happy we got to do this.
Me too. As part of what I started on this podcast, and keeping a beautiful cycle of interconnection, I ask my guests to feel into a blessing for the next guest. And so there is a blessing for you from our last guest, and he wishes for you to find the capacity and that stillness to just speak from your heart, and releasing the mind and allowing that ease that just comes from speaking from your heart just flows. So that is a blessing from Kaubali for you.
Thank you. Oh, that's so beautiful. I love how intentional you are about every little thing here. I mean, I know how intentional you are in life in general because I know you, but it really translates so beautifully here. Thank you. So should I share my
Yes.
lesson? Okay. All right. To whoever the next guest might be, I guess my um, blessing would be that they find um, peace and softness and ease in life and in their heart, and that they can find that voice of nature that speaks to all of us, that they can soften so much that they can hear it.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I will pass that blessing along. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today, and for all of the wisdom that you shared. And I know that it will inspire people to be more playful and mindful with the plants, of all the plants around us, not just cacao.
Yes.
And Yeah, thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to co-create this.
Of course, thank you so much. I am gonna stop by your house soon and I'm gonna give you a gift.
Yes, I can't wait.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So grateful to be here. So happy to share with you.
Thank you. And we could take a few moments just to close our time together. I like to place one hand on my heart and one hand on my belly or womb just to anchor in as we feel our connection to the heart of the sky again and the heart of the earth, feeling ourselves as that vessel that holds all. It holds our mind, it holds our emotions, holds our spirit, our body, our voice, our thoughts, and just sensing the whole conversation that we lived through together from all of the spaces that we touched upon, that it stirred, that it activated. And may these words begin to integrate into our lives with ease and gentleness and love and grace, planting new seeds of inspiration as we move throughout our days. And we give thanks to the heart of the earth. We give thanks to the heart of the sky. We give thanks to the heart of the waters, and we give thanks to the heart of the fire. We give thanks to the heart of the air. We give thanks to the heart of ether, and we give thanks to the heart of the void. We give thanks to the four winds that we breathe and the four directions that hold us in every single moment, to the north, the south, the east, and the west. We give thanks to our grandmothers and grandfathers, the guardians and protectors of our lands, and the guardians and protectors of the lands from which our cacao has traveled from today. We give thanks to the heart of Mama Cacao, and we give thanks to all who made this conversation possible, all of our guides, our guardians, our protectors, every single plant on the existence of this planet, every single co-creation, mineral, nutrients, crystal that is needed in order for it to sustain life. And we give thanks to everything that is in existence, everything that was in existence, and everything that ever will be in existence. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I love to close with, it is done, it is done, it is done, and it is fun, it is fun, it is fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Beautiful.
We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Support our ecosystem by subscribing so we can continue to thrive and help each other grow. I am Alexandra Gabrielle, the founder of Conversations with Cacao, and I just wanted to personally invite you to take the time you need to go at your own pace and tend to your own inner garden. Remember how important it is to nourish those roots of yours. Let your heart be awakened by even the littlest moments today. And remember, you are the stuff stars are made of. You are pure magic. Until next time.